What if the very thing you think makes you good is holding you back? What if the reason you feel exhausted, overlooked, or stuck isn't because you're doing too little, but because you're giving too much? You've spent years believing that kindness is a virtue, and it is, but only when it comes from a place of strength. When it becomes a habit to say yes when you mean no. When you silence your own needs to make someone else comfortable. When you bend until you break. That's not kindness. That's self-sabotage. And in 2026, it's time to stop pretending it's working. Think about the last time you said yes to something you didn't want to do. Maybe it was agreeing to help a friend move, even though you were already drained. Or staying late at work to cover for someone else, while your own goals sat untouched. Or maybe it was letting someone talk over you, dismiss your opinion, or take advantage of your willingness to be flexible, again and again. Every time you told yourself you were being kind, but deep down, how did it feel? Did it feel fair? Did it feel like you were honoring yourself? Because here's the truth, people who are too nice don't just struggle with saying no, they struggle with feeling worthy. Worthy of protection, worthy of space, worthy of respect. And this isn't just emotional fluff, it's backed by science. Studies show that chronic people pleasers experience higher levels of stress, burnout, and even physical illness. Why? Because constantly putting others first means ignoring your own boundaries, your own voice, your own needs. It's not sustainable. And more importantly, it's not noble. You might tell yourself that you're just trying to be a good person. That conflict is messy. That peace is worth any cost. But ask yourself this. What have you sacrificed to keep the peace? Your time, your dreams, your energy, your happiness, and for whom? For people who may not even realize what you're giving up, or worse, who expect it from you without question. There's a dangerous myth we've all been sold, that being liked equals being valuable. So many of us live our lives chasing approval, afraid that if we speak up, if we set a boundary, if we say no, we'll lose love, respect, or connection. But let me ask you this. What kind of connection is built on silence? What kind of love asks you to shrink so someone else can feel comfortable? This isn't about becoming cold or selfish. It's about clarity. It's about recognizing that kindness without boundaries becomes resentment. Generosity without limits becomes exhaustion. And compassion without self-respect becomes sacrifice, the kind that leaves you empty. If you've ever felt invisible while always showing up for others, if you've ever wondered why your efforts go unnoticed while others take what they want, this message is for you. Because there's a better way, a stronger way. One where you can still be kind, still be generous, still be loving, but also protected, respected, and fulfilled. And here's the reward for listening. Imagine a life where you choose what you say yes to. Imagine knowing that every time you give, it's because you chose to, not because you felt forced. Imagine waking up with energy instead of dread. Imagine finally standing in your own power, knowing that your voice matters, your time is valuable, and your peace is non-negotiable. That's not just a fantasy. That's a choice. And it starts with recognizing the hidden cost of being too nice, and deciding that in 2026, you're done paying that price. You deserve better than to be used. You deserve better than to be forgotten. You deserve better than to live your life apologizing for existing. So take a deep breath. This is your moment, the moment you stop shrinking, the moment you start valuing yourself as much as you value everyone else, because you are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to say no, and once you do, everything changes. You've just begun to see the cost of being too nice, how it drains your energy, silences your voice, and leaves you feeling invisible even when you give everything. But now comes the next question. Why do you keep doing it? Why, even after recognizing the pain it causes, does stepping into your own power feel so hard? You're not lazy, you're not weak. You're simply trained by years of messages telling you that your worth is tied to what you can do for others. From the moment you were young, you learned that approval came from being good, being helpful, being agreeable. If you smiled, people liked you more. If you stayed quiet, there was less conflict. If you gave more than you received, you were seen as kind, selfless, mature. And so you built a version of yourself around those expectations, not because you wanted to, but because you were taught to. Society rewards niceness, especially in women, in employees, in children who don't make waves. The message is clear: be polite, be accommodating, don't rock the boat. And over time you mistook that conditioning for your true nature. But here's the deeper truth, one that most people never want to face. Being too nice isn't always about kindness. It's often about fear. Fear of rejection, Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being seen as difficult or selfish. Fear that if you stop giving, people will stop loving you. That fear has kept you small, cautious, and constantly second-guessing your right to take up space. And that fear? It's been running the show for far too long. Research shows that chronic people-pleasers develop a pattern in their brains, a neural pathway that prioritizes others' needs over their own. Over time, this becomes automatic. You don't even realize you're doing it. You say yes before you think. You apologize before anyone else can. You shrink your voice, your wants, your boundaries, all to avoid discomfort. But here's the thing, discomfort is not danger. Just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, the most powerful growth happens exactly at the edge of discomfort. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you only ever use it to serve others, it gets stronger at serving others, and weaker at standing up for yourself. But muscles can be retrained. Neural pathways can be rewired. You are not stuck with the version of yourself that bends until it breaks. You have the ability and the right to change. This isn't about becoming someone cold or harsh. It's about becoming real with yourself, real with others, real about what you need, what you deserve, and what you're willing to tolerate. And the first step toward that shift is understanding where your patterns come from, so you can finally break free from them. You might be thinking, but what if they don't like me anymore? That thought might send a chill down your spine. But ask yourself, do you really want relationships built on obligation? Do you want love that only lasts as long as your availability? Or do you want connection that respects your truth, honors your limits, and celebrates your courage? Because that's what setting boundaries truly is, an act of courage. It's choosing your peace over someone else's comfort. It's putting your health before someone else's convenience. It's realizing that your value doesn't disappear when you stop giving endlessly. In fact, it grows. Because when you start protecting your energy, people begin to see you differently, not as someone to take for granted, but as someone who knows their worth. And once you start seeing yourself that way, everything shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop bending, breaking, and burning out. Instead, you begin to stand tall, to speak clearly, to choose deliberately. And that's when real power begins. So let yourself feel this moment. Let yourself understand that your struggle to say no isn't weakness, it's conditioning. And now that you see it, you no longer have to live by it. You can rewrite the rules, you can reclaim your voice, you can stop being too nice, not because you're becoming cold, but because you're finally learning to be true. True to yourself, true to your needs, true to your future. And that truth is the foundation of everything that comes next. You now understand the cost of being too nice. You've seen how it drains your energy, silences your voice, and keeps you stuck in a cycle of giving without receiving. You've uncovered the roots, the conditioning, the fear, the false belief that your value depends on how much you do for others. And now comes the turning point, the moment you realize that saying no is not only allowed, it's necessary. Because here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're actually saying no to yourself. No to your time, no to your peace, no to your goals. And when you keep doing that long enough, you start to disappear. Not because you're weak, but because you stop choosing yourself. But what if you could change that? What if you could reclaim your power with just one word? That word is no. And it's more than just a refusal. It's a declaration, a boundary, a statement of self-respect. Saying no isn't rude, it isn't selfish, it isn't cold, it's clarity. It's the moment you stop pretending that your needs don't matter. It's the moment you finally draw a line between what serves you and what doesn't. Think about the people you truly admire. Do they apologize constantly? Do they stretch themselves thin trying to please everyone? Or do they know who they are, what they want, and what they're willing to tolerate? The most respected people in life aren't the ones who agree to everything. They're the ones who stand firm in their values, even when it's uncomfortable. That's the difference between being kind and being passive. Kindness sees value in others. Passivity ignores value in yourself. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because when you start setting boundaries, you're not pushing people away. You're inviting them to respect you. When you stop overextending, you're not being unhelpful. You're protecting your energy so you can show up fully when it matters. When you say no, you're not closing doors. You're opening space for better opportunities, deeper relationships, and more freedom. It's not about becoming someone different. It's about becoming someone real. Someone who doesn't hide behind smiles and apologies. Someone who knows their worth and acts like it. And the best part? Every time you say no, it gets easier. Because each time you choose yourself, you build confidence. Each time you protect your peace, you reinforce your strength. And slowly, steadily, you begin to live on your own terms. Not by accident, not by approval, but by choice. You might be thinking, what if they get upset? That thought might still linger in your mind, pulling you back toward old patterns. But ask yourself this: should your happiness depend on someone else's comfort? Should your peace be sacrificed just to avoid a temporary reaction? Because here's the reality: not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people have grown used to your kindness and may feel surprised or even challenged when you start showing up differently. But that's not your problem to fix. Your job isn't to manage their emotions. Your job is to honor yourself. And once you start doing that, you'll notice something powerful. The people who truly care about you will adjust. They'll respect your time. They'll appreciate your honesty. They'll see you more clearly than ever before. And those who can't, they'll reveal themselves. And you'll finally understand who is really taking advantage of your kindness all along. This isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about alignment. About living in a way that reflects your truest self. And the more you practice saying no, the more space you create for the things that deserve your yes. Your dreams, your goals, your relationships, your peace. So take a deep breath. This is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not after you finish helping everyone else. Now, right here. The moment you decide that your time is valuable, that your energy is precious, that your voice deserves to be heard. Because you are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to set limits. And once you do, everything changes. You now understand that saying no isn't the end of kindness. It's the beginning of self-respect. You've seen how your fear of rejection has kept you small, how your need for approval has made you give too much, and how your silence has cost you more than you realized. And now, you stand at a choice: keep living in reaction to others' expectations or start living by your own truth. Because here's what most people never realize. Being kind doesn't mean being weak. It doesn't mean letting others walk all over you or sacrificing your peace just to be liked. True kindness comes from strength, from clarity, from knowing who you are and what you stand for, and refusing to compromise that for anyone. Think about the people you truly respect. Do they apologize for taking up space? Do they stretch themselves thin trying to please everyone? Or do they know exactly where they stand and hold their ground without hesitation? That's the difference between kindness and passivity. One builds trust. The other breeds expectation. One invites respect. The other invites exhaustion. And if you've spent years giving more than you receive, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been taught to believe that your worth is tied to what you can offer others. But real value doesn't come from constant giving. It comes from balance, from mutual respect, from knowing when to give and when to protect. So let yourself feel this shift. Let yourself understand that you don't have to earn love by being endlessly available. You don't have to prove your loyalty by always saying yes. You don't have to silence your needs to make someone else comfortable. Because the truth is, confidence isn't loud. It's quiet certainty. It's knowing your worth and acting like it. It's speaking clearly, standing tall, and choosing your energy with intention. And once you start doing that, everything changes. You begin to attract people who respect your time. You begin to build relationships based on honesty, not obligation. You begin to live with integrity, aligning your actions with your truest self, instead of hiding behind a version of you that always says yes. This isn't about becoming cold or harsh. It's about becoming clear, about understanding that your kindness means more when it's chosen, not expected, that your generosity carries weight when it's given freely, not forced, that your presence matters most when you show up as you really are, not as someone else wants you to be. And once you embrace that, you'll start noticing something powerful. The people who truly care about you will adjust. They'll see your boundaries not as walls, but as signals, showing them how to treat you. And those who can't respect that, they'll reveal themselves for who they really are. But this isn't about blame or resentment. It's about alignment, about building a life that reflects your values, not someone else's demands. And the more you choose yourself, the stronger you become. You'll stop apologizing for existing. You'll stop shrinking to fit into spaces that don't honor you. You'll stop stretching beyond your limits just to avoid disappointment. Instead, you'll learn to pause, to ask yourself, does this serve me? Does this protect my peace? Does this move me closer to who I want to be? And when the answer is no, you'll say it, not with guilt, not with hesitation, but with clarity. Because your time is valuable. Your energy is limited. Your peace is non-negotiable. And the world doesn't need another person who gives until they break. It needs people who lead with strength, who show up fully, not just constantly, who inspire not through sacrifice, but through balance. So take a deep breath. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not after you finish helping everyone else. Now. The moment you decide that your kindness will never again come at the cost of your power, the moment you commit to being generous, but never taken for granted, the moment you step into your truth and refuse to shrink again. Because you are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to set limits. And once you do, everything changes. You've come a long way. You've seen the cost of being too nice, how it drains your energy, silences your voice, and keeps you stuck in a cycle of giving without receiving. You've uncovered the roots of that pattern, the conditioning, the fear, the belief that your value depends on what others think of you. You've faced the truth that saying no isn't rude, it's necessary. That kindness without boundaries becomes resentment. That self-respect isn't selfish, it's essential. And now comes the most powerful part, taking action. Because knowledge alone doesn't change lives. Understanding doesn't shift habits. Only one thing does: choice. The moment you decide to live differently, to protect your peace, to speak up, to stop shrinking and start standing tall, this is your year, 2026. Not just another calendar turning its pages, but your chance to finally break free from the patterns that have held you back for so long. This is the year you stop apologizing for existing. The year you stop stretching yourself thin trying to please everyone. The year you finally choose yourself not as an afterthought but as a priority. Imagine what that could look like. 1 month from now, you say no without guilt. 1 month from now, you pause before agreeing, asking yourself, does this serve me? 1 month from now, you begin to reclaim your time, your energy, your peace. 6 months from now, you've built new habits. You speak up when something feels wrong. You walk away from situations that drain you. You surround yourself with people who respect your limits instead of testing them. You no longer confuse silence with kindness, or kindness with weakness. 12 months from now, you are unrecognizable to your old self. Confident, grounded, free, no longer chasing approval. No longer hiding behind smiles and apologies, no longer sacrificing your peace to keep someone else comfortable. Because here's the truth, your worth was never tied to how much you give. It was always about how deeply you honor yourself. And once you make that shift, everything changes. People will notice. They'll see the difference in how you carry yourself, in how you speak, in how you set your boundaries with quiet strength. And those who truly care about you will adjust, because they'll finally understand how to treat you. Some won't, and that's okay. Because this isn't about keeping everyone happy, it's about living a life that makes you happy. A life where you're not constantly bending until you break, but standing tall in your own power. This is not a small transformation. It's not just about learning to say no. It's about rewriting the rules, about rejecting the belief that your value depends on others' approval, about stepping into a version of yourself that refuses to shrink. And the best part? You don't need permission to start. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You don't need anyone else's approval to begin protecting your energy. All you need is one decision. To stop being too nice. To start being true. To finally live on your own terms. So take a deep breath. This is your moment, not tomorrow. Not after you finish helping everyone else. Right now, the moment you decide that enough is enough. The moment you commit to honoring your needs as much as you've always honored everyone else's. Because you deserve better than to be used. Better than to be forgotten. Better than to live your life apologizing for existing. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to set limits, and once you do, everything changes.